Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Today we have in the Finn cycle not the last story, but, well, one of the last stories. This is the story where we find the death of Finn. Yes, I said it. This is where Finn dies. So join me, won't you? And let's enjoy this tale called The Death of Finn. No cycle of heroic tales in any country is regarded as complete, well, without the story of the death of the central hero. All readers of epic literature recall the death of Beowulf and Siegfried and Roland. In medieval Ireland, desires for harmony and system called into existence the death tales of not only the central heroes like Cuchulainn and Finn, but also other famous warrior kings. The story of, well, Finn's death no doubt belongs to the early authenticity of Irish tradition. The date of composition of this piece in its present form has not been established, but comparatively late, probably about the same period as the colloquy of the old men. The rhetoric is, well, flamboyant and times over conventionalized, yet the narrative is very direct and proceeds in inevitability to its conclusion without interruption. The final scene, in which the fierce old warrior faces his lifelong enemies in his last battle, is one of memorable tragic dignity. The story begins with a great boar hunt held by Finn and his champions. During, well, a pause in activities, there is told a story of the origin of Finn's magic horn, which bears a mysterious curse. Then the boar hunt itself is resumed. Oscar kills a terrible boar that has been feared by the people of Erin, and the following selection begins immediately after the killing of the boar. In other words, the actual death of Finn is not included, since the end of the story is kind of lacking in manuscript. So basically his death throes, his last words aren't included, but what led up to his death and the mortal wound is. So, let's get to it. Finn meditated upon the discussion to leave Ireland for fear of prophecy. The prophecy is of the destruction made by the connection with the horn, which the Concrach had made to him. For dread the fear had seized upon him that the Fan would be slaughtered, and he himself would meet his death that year. And this decision that he made to leave Ireland and go across the sea eastwards to Britain, there to conclude his fanship for his power, was, well, no less in Britain than here. So that the issue of the year of the prophecy which had been made to him might further off. And he communicated that decision about going eastwards across the sea to Angus of Berg and to notables of his people and all of Finn. And he uttered the lay. Let us go across the mooring placid sea, O Fan of Finn, the great Tara. Unless I find speedy help, I shall part from ever fair Ireland. To Lugar the battle destined, not the deed of wailing, but a cause of tears. Unless I find proper help, I shall part from my own Fan here. Angus MacWalk will come to our help for sake of kinship. It is easily to go to Berg before the journey. Then the nobles of Finn went to hold council, and they came to the decision not to go to Finn and not let him cross the sea that year. Do not go across the sea, O royal leader of the Finn, they said, for if chase and spoils fail us in Ireland, there are not enough of us here leaders, and we shall make fresh feast for you every night until the year is ended. And upon this decision they fixed, and the Fan dispersed to their strongholds, and homesteads to prepare for Finn, so that he might find a banquet in the house of every one of them. And the one whom it fell to attend and serve Finn on that night was Fiotri, son of Uthrin Ichra, and Fansheet of Cornwall, Murtham the Lugrim of Terra. And while his wife Fiotri was Ilchid Ormur, daughter of Cormor MacMorna, and he had a noble, distinguished son, valorous, wise, and clever, whose grandfather goal was the size of a slateness and scholarship, in vigilance and strength and championship, and liberty and powerless, and might and vigor and dexterity and abundance, in hardness and boldness, and in king knightless, recklessness and integrity, and in management, and in beauty of form, in valor and dauntless. Now, when Firli saw the small number of hosts that Finn had with him, he meditated to practice treachery and deceit guilt upon him with his people, for they were his people, with him only Called Colcher, the son of the king of Norway, and Logar the Swiftbrow, son of Dobson, and Simur, son of king of the men of Fannel. And while 500 warriors, and each of them they had just come across the sea to meet Finn, who had taken them with him that night as an honour to them, having left behind all his own clan, and while his usual company, except Adbrugdug, son of Phelan, son of Finn, and the 3 coups from Mornin, and the 500 other warriors, together with these 4, so that the whole company of Finn numbered 5,000. And Firli communicated his treacherous design to Emer Gliskin, son of Error, son of Gorod, son of Morna. That fitting and foretold design, said Emer, for Finn is our heraldry enemy, since Gol, the great son of Mona, has fallen by him, and all Clan Morna and the fathers and grandfathers. And they determined to slay Finn with his people by treachery. And those who came to that decision were Firli, son of Falti, and Imrglas, son of Ad, son of Grub, and the 5 sons of Urge and Lutheran Meth, and the 3 Chubraniks from the stable plain of Fermoy. And these all vowed to slay Finn with his people. And thus they arranged the shape of treachery and its dispense to hold up small company. And it was with Finn, for there were with him only 5,000, not counting the hounds and guilds. And this is, while a device they shaped, and fierce, stark, naked men should come across a household of Firti to where Finn was well belting his people, and they should say that the slaughter they were lost and being inflicted by Finn's people on those Firti, so that, well, the story might be beginning of a conspiracy of the general onslaught to kill Finn. When Finn had been belittled by his people and splendid war-down hostel was arranged for him in the stronghold of Fithri, with the choice drapery and freshest rushes, and a great pile of fire was kindled before Finn and Fithri, and the sons and kings and princesses were with them. Now, when Finn sat down and his people enjoyed the feast, they saw the conspirators and traitors coming towards them to the hospital, equipped with sharp-edged speckled shields on the back of each champion. When Finn saw the bloody aspect of the assassins upon those men, he knew what they were, and did not allow the entertainment to proceed, and kept watching the crew and variable enemies that he come to the hostel to him. And Finn was arrayed this, and he had broad-chested ward corset about him, in which were 27 board-like compacts, wax shirts protecting his body against fights and hazards of battle. In other words, early armor. It was but a short time after that they were heard the loud, angry hue and cry of fierce, stark-naked men clamoring and vociferating, coming towards the stronghold where those nobles were. And as thus it said that the Finn and Falmouth people were slaughtering and attacking the cows and farmers of the land. "We do not like these sudden raids," said Firli. "It shall be well, however," said Finn, "that any dangers shall be suddenly made good, for 2 cows shall be given for each single cow, and 2 sheep for 1. It's not for that purpose that thou hast come," said Firli, "but to slay us that hast slain our father and our grandfathers before us." And as he said that he attacked Finn suddenly, fiercely, like one of his senses. But there was not an attack on awareness, for Finn and his people responded to it sorely, martially, wrathfully, and the battle was fought between them manfully, bravely, fiercely, and upon the central floor of the hostel. And Ferti was intervening and was protecting Finn. However, the champions had fallen, did not begin to look at each other until thrice 9 brave warriors had fallen before them on the hostel floor. And it was at that Inca Arma, the wife of Finnn and mother of Finnn, heard the turmoil of the multitude and fierce shouts of the warriors as they were hacking each other. And she came to the hostel, tore her checkered coif from her head, and tossed a fair yellow hair, bared her breasts, and said, "My son, it is the ruin of honor to disgrace to a soldier that he reproached to tell a displeasing of such luck and to bravery and princely Finn of the Fawn. And now quietly leave the hostel, my son," she said. And Ferti left the hostel to his mother. And as he went forth, he said, "I announce battle to thee tomorrow, Finn. The battle will be responded to," said Finn, "for we should be in no strait if we were equal numbers to give battle to thee." And that night Finn was served until he was satisfied, invigorated, and cheerful, both he and his fan. And Finn said, "It all suits my honor that Finri should impugn me tonight, not grant me fair play. A time will come when no one will grant fair play to another." No comment here about the current government situation all over the world. And then Fan made this lay. "O Fairy, whenever it will be long or short to come, the time when keen men will come, he will not submit to like thee. He will be put down in a time of blue weaponized foreigners, nor he will get to Ireland from me, but a route in the north and a route in the south. A time will come when the foreigners will be slaughtered. Whatever it be long or short to come, a sense for anyone to overthrow his children. I am Finn, good is your ale. So drink and drink, since thou dost not grant justice or fair play. Thy grieve will be on the boren, O man." When he finished that song, Finn said, "Warriors, I fear the words which Fairy speaks to us, remembering his feud against us. It is true indeed," he said, "that I have seen grandson of Mora in the battle of Curm cutting down a Fan, so that they did not dare face him for boiling wrath for his champion. That indeed I've also seen that a veteran in sour plight by the Fan," said Finn. And then he spoke. "Ekra Amr, daughter of Gor, mother of Fatri, of the slender hand. Many are thy whose head he has beloved, and son will fall with me. To me they grant no justice. I saw Gardurli, he would drain the lake as though he were a river, on the day he fell by the Fan. Thrice that he cried, ah, and woe! Gol was splitting shields. There was a lord that dealt out blood in the battle of Corman, his hand and his wrath seethed. Thereupon Ferry, son of Ovra, came into the house where Finn and sat down by Finn's side, and passed drink and merriment upon him, and said, It is for this that the battle has been proclaimed against thee tomorrow, O royal Fan chief, because thou art without a host or multitude. I am by own means in that condition, said Fan, for the son of the king of the men of Fanel is by my side, that is Logder of the swift blows, and he will keep off 300 warriors from me in this battle. And Korker, son of the king of Norway, is with me, again showing the distinction in here of the tie between the Norse and the Irish Celtic as well, who came to avenge his brothers upon me and Finnn, and what he had seen the hounds of men of the Finnn, that he fell greatly in love with them, abandoned his intent of plunder and spoliation and stay with me. And he will keep off 300 battled armed against warriors of me in battle, O Freder, said Finn. And there are many other full-blooded warriors of fierce deeds by my side who are eager for fight and agile conflict, and of unwearied power and furious and in onslaught. And then he spoke. Macdulb, son of Silmaril of the Cloaks, Logra, son of Swiftblows, they will slay 300 champions, and prophecy shall not be falsified. There is here a son of Norway's king, Korokurs, of the combatants. By him 300 of the host shall fall. For warriors fierce and sword red. Woe to him who will oppose the Finnn when they all rise in combat. They do not refuse hard battle. Reckless they rise all at once when the Legra comes to battle on the morrow. By drinking of shields and blades and hands, many a mother would wilt without a son. That night they were discussing an appointed battle and for conflict on the morrow. In the early bright morning Finnn arose and sent messengers for his people, who responded stoutly, bravely, and proudly from all directions. And Finnn, with his 1,500 warriors, went to Athberla in the southern Boyne, and they ranged themselves in battle order upon the bottom of the fjord in a mass of shields, swords, and helmets. As for Fitri, son of Uldrun Ungren, and Fitri, son of Fentel, they gathered their host and multitude, and they came in a fine, huge, brave companies to one place, so that they were 3,000 battle-armed warriors. And they came to Athenbrether, and when they saw a small number on the other side, in the bottom of the fjord, they grumbled at it. And it is a counsel they took, and they took their dresses of battle and combat about them, and they advanced in their light dresses and their ponderous armor. And these are the nobles that were put in the front of the battalion of the pillars. That is the Fetri, son of Uthrin Ugrim, and Fetri, son of Fitri, and Imar son of Elgris Gronson of Morna, and the 5 sons of Ugri of the ancient tribes of Tara, and the 3 tabernacles from the stubble plain of Firmi, and the Ligurn of Tara as well. Now, when the manifold prison powers, terrible, fierce, battling prince of the Fawn, and the valorous, fierce, combative hero of the Fawn, Mecomo, and many battles beheld, the battle Falsic arranged against them. It seems to me, he says, those men are giving us battle in earnest. And, O my messenger Brigid, said Finnn, go and speak to those people and offer them terms. What terms? I will tell you, said Finnn. It is that I give them wealth and territory for their land estates, and I will give them as much again if they will not this time come against us, and remind them that they are foster sons of mine, said Finnn. And Bergerd, the female messenger, came to where these nobles were and told them that. It is just to accept the terms, said Fitri, for Finnn loves thee dearly. And Fildri, he said, for thou wast one of 12 men that used to be Finnn in his house, and thou always hardest and first of counsel from him, and the last to drink. And thou art a foster son of his, he said. I pledge my sword, said Fildri, that I and Finnn shall never again drink together in friendship, nor will I ever enter his house again. That is ill-advised, said Fildri, because Finnn is a noble person and excellent prince. For he with his fan is vigilant and ready for fight and attack. And I've seen Finnn in battles and combats, and I never saw his equal for swiftness, for valor, for fury, for hardness, for boldness, for fierceness, for heroism, and slaying hosts of multitudes, except for Cuchulainn. And then he spoke this lay, and Fildri replied, Fildri, woe to him who give battle to the Finnn, for if he were in his senses, their deeds are fierce. It were better to slay by Finnn himself than go submissive to his house. Fethri, I shall not go to Finnn. I shall not meet him. I shall meet him in the round of battle, and I shall not be stayed by him, nor shall I go to submit to his house. Veltri, Finnn is a good and cutting down battalions. He is vanquished in hand in every direction. Whoever fights with him, the brilliant king, it is woe to himself, he seems to me. It is ill advised, said Fithri, to give battle to Finnn on account of his noble and fierceness and valor. Not so at all, said Fithri. We shall accept nothing at all from him but battle. For you disrupt, old warrior, and will stand up against us, for redness and bravery in the uprising of battle. And the messenger turned back and reported these words to Finnn. I pledge my word, said Finnn, if our army would come to us, we should not propose those terms to them. Go there again, my messenger, and offer them further terms. What further terms? Said the messenger. The award of judges, and the addition of it to their own award of them. And again the messenger came and offered those terms, and it is just to accept those terms, said Fithri, and whoever has given the battle to Finnn unjustly has always been routed by Finnn. And Fethri spoke this lay thus, and Fithri replied, Fithri, I have seen cutting down hosts on which the broken go to battle. To fight him is an unequal contest. Woe to him who goes to meet him. Fithri, Finnn will not go without fighting him, though fierce be his powers, until, be it I wish, without sense, without reason. Fithri, the men of morning will be there with mighty blades from your conflict. Ophirus, fan, oxen will without yoke. It is time for me to depart now, said the messenger. No other substance of terms will I accept from you, except battle. And Immergaus, son of Gerard, so said the sons of Ilgre and Corin, so said the Legion of Torah. The messenger went and gave the true account to Fan, and they say that you are worn-out, feeble-handed old men, Finn, said the messenger. I pledge my word, said Finn, that I will fight them like a youngster. And then he spoke this. The ancient Legion of Torah with false words, if they come to Bri. I shall give them vigorous battle. The son of Eretz, son of Domra Icarus, this is the end of his sway. To be in this battle. The sons of Gerge will fall in witness of it. Every wrong which I recount to them, it shall be destruction. Foes would deem it sport. When they scatter spears, they will carry with them on their lips in the ancient stories. Thereupon Finn said, Go, my messengers, and offer them further terms on account of the pride of their host, and the excellence of their powers and boldness of noblemen daring in their counsel, for every enemy is unforgiving my messengers. And he said, I offer them their own award, for a battle without terms is not good. So Bregad the messenger came and went to where those chieftains were and offered them their own award. We should not accept substance nor terms on territory nor land, but battle, so that we may avenge our ancient wrongs. And Feltri attempted to kill the messenger, but he was prevented. I pledge my word for it, said Filri. O Brigid, thou art seen again. I will shorten thy life. And Beg returned upon the road and lifted her dress to the rounds of her legs, and her tongue quivering with the great danger in which she was. And so she came to where Finn was. O royal chief of the Fan, said Brigid, those yonder have but one accord taken their counsel against you, she said, and act bravely against those warriors and the Vlugar and Tara. It shall be done then. For the debtor's speech for which I shall hold them when they bloody and crushing, wrathful and resentless. Then rose the royal chief of the Fan of Erin, and Scotland, and of the Saxons and Britons, of Lewis and Norway, and hither islands, and put the battle dress and conflict in the thin silken shirt of a wonderful choice of strain. For Fairfell Celt of a land of promise, for face of his white skin, and outside over he put 24 waxed stout shirts of cotton, formed as a board about him. And on top of these he put a beautiful plated 3-mesh coat of mail of cold refined iron. And around his neck has given gold bouldered breastplate, and about his waist he put stout corselet and decorated firm belt with gruesome images of dragons, so that he reached his thick of his thighs. So his armpits, whence his spears and blades would rebound, and his short-shafted material 5-edged spears were placed over against the king. And he put his golden shaft sword of redness on his left, and he grasped his broad blue, well-groomed Norse lance, and upon the arched expanse of his back he placed the emerald-tinted shield with flowery designs, with vangraded beautiful boss, pale gold, with delightful studs of bronze, which twisted stout chains of old silver. And to protect the hero's head in battle, he seized his crested plated, 4-edged helmet of beautiful refined gold, with brilliant, magnificent crystal gems, and with flashing full beautiful precious stones, which had been set in the hands of master smiths and great artists. Again explaining how the ancient, well, not ancient Irish, because the ancient Irish used to go into battle naked with only woad, but this is more of a medieval dress that the Irish had. And in that way he went forth, a famous tree of upholding battle, and a bush of shelter for brave warriors, and a stable strike of hosts and multitudes, and a protecting door valve of warriors and battle soldiers of the western world. Nor did he stop in his course until he reached the brink of the fjord. Truly, it was no wonder that the kinship of Erin in Scotland, and the headship of the Finnn, and the whole world would be in the hands of Finnn MacColmrach. At that time he was of but 5 masters in every great art, and of his 3 sons of comfort of Erin, along with Lulumgofsa, son of Karen, who ousted the race of the Fomorians from Ireland, and Bran Boru, son of Kirma, who brought Ireland out of the bondage of oppression, so that there was not a willowing sheet of any kin without Norse slave to work it, until Bran cast them out, and Finn MacCormail, the 3rd son to comfort Ireland, who was expelled from Ireland, and murderers and ravers and monsters, many beasts, and full many fleet of exiles in every part of pest. And there came a plague of Ireland into form of another, and the whole year Finn fled the men of Ireland, and put 7 cows and a bull in every single farmstead in Ireland. Now, however, that Lurus Praeus chieftain came and pledged a small host that was with him to behave bravely against the army before him. And the 1,500 Finn warriors that were Fan rose in powerful urging of the voice of their lord. And each warrior leapt unto his coat of mail, and grasping his sword, and seized his lance. For they were a mass of shield and sword and helmet around Finn Cormo and Conacora, son of the king of Norway, and around Loker the swift blows, and son of Dobro Solman, son of the king of men and Ferman, and around Ardburger, son of Finnn, son of Fan, and the 3 Cusco Morgan. They lifted up their dense, vast, huge, dark, red, and flaming forest, and stout-shafted martial 5-edged spears, and the broad blue lances, and bloody, red-edged javelins, and made a triumphant, angry, fierce fold of Fium combat, indestructible, inseparable platform of beautiful Burgan shields, and the delightful all-white shields of graven emerald shields, and of crimson blood-red shields, and shining Vildegrundy shields, and of crimson spiky shields, and yellow speckled buffalo horn shields. It was enough of horror and heart trouble for their enemies to see them in that wise and venomous of their weapons, and the warlike array of their equipment, and the stoutness of their hearts, and ferocity of their intent. And they made a swift, light-winged rush in the well-arranged farsax and destructive mass and their furious band to the center of the fjord. And then from one side came the ford of the 3,000 battle-equipped warriors that the pillars of Tara numbered, and put their attire of battle and contest about them. And their trumpets were sounded before them, and their war cries were raised deftly, and their battle was put in order. And their impetuous, bold soldiers of the fierce warriors, that their valiant heroes were arrayed in the forefront of the mutual smithing. That is Feltri, son of Us and Okra, son of Feltri, Umogrumus, Ora, son of the 5 sons of Urkra, Mordormans and Ugrum himself, and the 3 Jaboros in the stable plain of Firmi. And they made a swarming, swift, territorial rush to the center of the fjord from the other side against Finnn and his people. They did not long rest content with looking at each other before the two armies flung themselves against one another. And they uttered loud, mighty shouts so that their echoes rang in the woods, the rocks in the cliffs, and the river's mouth and the caves of the earth, and the cold outer zones of fragment. And they were hurled between them showers of bloody, sharp-edged javelins, and of broad half-spears for throwing, and of hand-hard mighty stones. And the battle became closer, and the conflict intense, and the slaughter grew vast, and the combat became embittered, and each warrior attacked another fiercely, impatiently, furiously, madly, and they made angry, wrathful, crushing, masterful, brisk, bitter, earnest fight. And they flung huge stones on the break each other's heads and skulls and hamlets, and fringes of the two armies became mingled in confusion. Then, indeed, many a stout spear was broken, and many a hard-ground sword bent, and many a shield shattered, and the helmets and headpieces broke into pieces, while the soldiers and champions were inflicting wounds. Then there were many bodies maimed, and skins lacerated, and sides pierced, and bold warriors mangled, and champions cut down, and bodies of heroes in their litter of blood. It was enough to kill half-hearted warriors, and the cowards merely to behold the traverse smithing of the cooked blades upon the shoulders of the men, and to hear the roar of the champions as they fell, and the clangor of shields as they were split, and the crank of the land courses that were broken, and the ringing of the swords upon the crests of the helmets, and the outcry of the hosts as they were defending themselves against the champions. And the warriors did not cease from the deadly conflict until, from one end to the other, was a crimson and tribute, until the mass of blood that flowed out of the warriors' wounds and heavy troubled waters of the Boyne from the fjord were drowned, were a blood-red, foaming cauldron. And then came a couple of Finn's people to the battalion, to the pillars, that is, Torwa son of Domra and the Tomra son of Tomra, and these two brought disaster upon the troops, so that 9 warriors fell by each of them, until the 2 sons of Urgum came against them in the battle, so that the 4 fought together, and that couple of Finn's people fell by the sons of Urgre in the confines of the combat. Thereupon a fierce, implacable warrior of Finn's people came into the battalion, and the pillars, namely Logor of the Swift Blows, son of Domro, son of the king of men and Ferma, he had made breach of 100 in battle right in front of him. And he piled his wrath upon Logor of Tara, so that 100 warriors of the people of Felti fell by him. However, when Fenrir saw the spreading of slaughter that was great world clearance, and the battle breaking with Logo wrought on his people, he came to meet him. Furious are these onslaughts, O Logr, said Fethri. It is true indeed, and no thanks to thee. 'Tis not a friendly discourse which you have held with our people. Then came 100 flaming, full keen warriors of Filtri's people against Logr in battle, and they all fell by Logr's hand before the eyes of their lord. Logr wounded Filtri in return. For his wound, Filtri wounded him. And just then there came another 100 angry, implacable warriors of Filtri's people, and those 100 fell by Logr's hand in the confines of battle. And he wounded Filtri, and Filtri wounded him. However, these two pledged each other to encounter and combat. So they planted stout shaft and martial hard-stock spears into each other's sides and ribs. It was confusion to the champions and trembling of battalions to be looking on the encounter of these two until Logr fell by Filtri in the confines of combat, and Filtri boasted of the triumph. That did not intimidate or frighten Finnn or his people, but they pressed the battle and urged the attack. After the fell of Logr came Cossack, son of King of Norway, into the battalion of the pillars, and the terrible were the slaughters which he wrought amongst the battalions around him, so that the soul would touch soul, arm, and neck. Wherever he went among the enemy, when Ambergast beheld the slaughter of warriors and that onset of the royal hero, he came himself to meet Conor like an angry, combative bull to a trial of strength. When they saw one another, they rushed at each other stoutly for the contest, so that everyone who was looking on was confounded. However, 300 valiant, fierce warriors fell between them and their household guard. Nor was it there any help against the men who came near him was certain end of life. There was never spared another's body until they both fell at each other's hands in the presence of the battalion. And then came Albrauder, son of Finnn, among the hosts of the pillars. And the West Pasha made him in battle, so that there was a terrible to see wherever he went. Alkmor, son of Dobel, and Almeg in battle, and thrice 9 warriors of the flower of Ure people fell by Arberra, and they made a valiant, bloody, heroic combat against each other. Those were terrible wounds and perilous maimings, and intersecting were the injuries that inflicted each other's bodies until Arberra fell in the confines of that combat. Now when the Prince of Finnn saw that the champions of Finnn were now laid low, that their strong men had fallen and men of rank had been slain, the perfect wise chieftain understood that fame was more lasting than life for him, and that it was better for him to die than to flinch before an enemy. 'Twas then that the royal Finnn chief came to the host of the pillars. And his spirits grew high, and his courage rose, and his quickened his hands, and he piled his blows so that his bird of valor arose over beneath the royal warrior, so that the crowds of warriors were unable to stand against his prowess, so that the men fell round his knee, and a heap of them were piled up in their maimed, bodied, and bloody, treacherous necks, and the litter of gore wherever he would go into the battle. And he went among them, and through them, and over them like a fierce, furious bull that has been badly beaten, or like a lion whose young have been wounded, or like a turbid wave to deluge that time of flood sports and the bravest of high mountain, breaking and crushing everything that is in its reaches. And 3 times he went round the battalion of the pillars, as a woodbine hugs a tree, or as fond women clasps her son, and the crushing of thighs and shin bones and halves heads under the edge of his sword in the battle was like a smiting of a smith on the forge, or like an uproar whether trees crackling, or like a foe, like the sheets of ice under the feet of a cavalcade. The pale-faced and buckled-shaped spirits and round-mouthed battle demons, and the spectres of the glen, fiends of the air, and the goodly falchions of the fragmented shrieked as they waged warfare and strife above the head of the fan chief wherever he went in battle. The royal warrior would never cease from that onslaught until the time of the pillars were annihilated, both by slaughter and fight. All save for Felri, Fati, and the 5 sons of Urgrit. When Felri saw Finn by himself, without troops to protect him, and without a friend to guard his back, he came to meet him and researched his enmity against the royal fan chief. Finn answered Felri and said, "Thou wilt thyself fall before these feud." And those two began a long combat on the spot. The encounter of these two impetuous, vengeful, stern, and fierce strokes, a harsh clamoring of swords and tusk-hilt blades against the helmets on each other, was horrible and perilous. When Felton had won out his sword against the head of the body of the royal fan chief, he seized his stout-shafted 5-edged spear. And a man shout vigilant, justified, posed warrior-like cast at Fan, so that when he sent a spear through the ample dress which was about the royal armor, so that the spear pierced him through and mangled his body. Angrily and distrustfully did the royal fan chief answer the murderous wound which felt he had inflicted upon him, so that he gave him a fierce, hard, bone-crushing blow with his sword, and struck his head off his body. And Finnn boasted that the veteran warrior and that prop of battle having fallen by him. Wherever when Filtri beheld his son falling, he came venomously, sulkily, and impatiently towards Finn and said, "Those Sioux are great deeds, Finn." "That is true," said Finn. "And why hast thou not come until now?" "I had hoped thou wouldst have fallen by Filri, and I should have liked thee to have fallen by him rather by me." "Thou hast come to commemorate me," said Finn, "or to attack me?" "To attack thee indeed," said Fatri, "for not the lordship nor wealth has been appointed for which I should forgive the slaying of my son." Then he attacked Fan without sense, without reflection, and without sparing. Fan met him, that truly bold champion. Those two performed many heroic feats to destroy and annihilate each other. But it was difficult and impossible to give a description of that fight, for the charges were bull-like, headlong, and fierce, and perilous and dangerous were the wounds, and cruel and terrible, and the injuries which they inflicted upon each other. And Feltri seized an opportunity of wounding the royal fan chief, and gave him such a thrust with his spear that the wound yawed no less to the other side than on the side which he had struck. And in revenge for this wound, Fan dealt Feltri such a fierce blow that his sword, that neither the long corset, no compact wielding, nor the hard foreign armor was any protection to Feltri, so that the champion fell to the ground in 2 heavy pieces. And Finn boasted of having achieved that great deed. This was the hour in which the 5 sons of Urge came upon the scene and turned their faces towards Fan. When Finn beheld those inadvertent enemies making for him, he avoided them not, and each of them planted a spear in the royal fan chief. And he replied to the 5 champions with equal force and gave them wound for wound. When the sons of Ugri saw that the hero had been wounded in either combats which they had fought with the Feltri and his son Felri, he was feeble from loss of blood. Unfortunately, the rest and exactly the last words have not been recounted here or in any manuscript that has actually survived. So that is, in essence, what we have left of the death of Finn.